Hey everyone, this is Chris from HashRelay.net bringing you another early morning market update. From CoinMarketCap, we can see that there we are. We can see that the global market cap is almost $400 billion. Daily trading volume is $27.5 billion. Bitcoin dominance remains at that 35.7%. Bitcoin's almost up at $8,500. Ethereum's $833. We're seeing some slight red in several of the coins, but not too many big numbers. A couple of percent for the most part. And if we look at on-chain FX, we can see that there are still a handful of cryptos that are less than 50% away from their all-time high. But we still have a good grip of coins that are 50 to 70% off. If we go to the charts here on Bitcoin, we can see that we're getting more of the body of this candle to match this downturn wick here, which would be a positive signal for Bitcoin. It is going to have to test this downtrend line and this uptrend line, but with the growth continuing like it has, that shouldn't be a problem. MACD looks like it's fairly close to a crossover at this point, and we can see a nice uptrend on the RSI. Ethereum, quite the same. We're getting a curve back to this yellow line on the MACD for Ethereum, and we're getting a tiny little bounce up on the RSI at the 40 line, bringing it a little closer to that 50 mark we're looking for. Again, the body of this candle is almost extended past the wick of yesterday's candle, which is good news. But I still think it'll be another day before we get up to this downtrend line here. For Litecoin, we are at the decision point, basically. We'd like to see a bit more on this green candle here, but the indicators in the MACD still looking good, almost ready to cross over, still picking up on the RSI. So we should see some positive movement here in Litecoin for the next few hours anyway. And if we go over to NEO, we're seeing a bit of a downtrend following this downtrend line here. We're still meeting resistance on that previous all-time high. So for now, I think we'll probably continue to consolidate down this downtrend line until we meet the uptrend line also. At which point, the strength of NEO tells me that it will likely break through. Here we can see a bit of a divergence on the MACD, and we're getting a couple long bars on the histogram. We had a peak in the RSI. It started to flatten out, maybe dip a little lower towards that 50, which is a slightly bearish sign, so we'll want to watch that for the next few days. Steam is bouncing off of this uptrend line here. I'd like to see it make a full bounce, come back up to this downtrend line, or break through it would be even better. We are getting a bit of a divergence on the MACD, starting to dip lower than the yellow line. We're seeing some longer bars on the histogram. We have crossed below this 50 mark, just barely on the RSI. And so we're going to want to see it bounce off of that also and come back up towards the 70 line. And same can be said for Komodo. We've got a couple of negative days here. Would like to see them bounce off this uptrend line. We're getting close to the intersection of the uptrend and downtrend, which will signify some movement, but it could take several days before we get there. MACD, as with Steam, is diverging a little bit. We're starting to see a couple of longer bars on the histogram, but the RSI has flattened out, so we should expect to see some sideways momentum, some consolidation, possibly some minor negative trends towards this upline, and that would be just fine if it bounces off this upline. Moving on to Vertcoin. You see that after a couple of up days, we're starting to get a tiny red candle, which is not too bad. We've still crossed over on the MACD, and the RSI looks like it's flattening out pretty well. We couldn't keep above the line on... Oh, actually, I think we are above the line there. Just barely above the line on the histogram, which is good news. We should see some positive momentum from Vertcoin today. We want to see it break out of this short-term downtrend line. It's going to face a lot of resistance from its previous actions. So we're going to want to see some big moves in Vertcoin. As you can see, the bodies of most of these candles are pretty small, so we are due for a bigger move at some point. And if we can bounce off of this uptrend line and make a big move above this downtrend line, we'd like to see it come up and meet the long-term downtrend line. But we could still have several days before we see that. Quant Stamp continuing its positive move. We're getting a crossover on the MACD. The RSI is angled up over that 50 line towards that 70. We're getting some shorter bars here for the positive uptrend, but it is still positive. I'm not sure why my trend lines did not stay. So we'll go ahead and pop one here real quick. And one for downtrend. And so we're going to want to see Quant Stamp pop above this downtrend line. And once it does, it only has about 1,000 Satoshi before it meets some next resistance, and then it will be all-time highs for Quant Stamp. And for Lumen, we're seeing a little bit of a negative trend here. We've got some negative divergence on the MACD. We're getting some pretty long bars on the histogram. RSI is in a downward fashion, just crossed over that 50 line, so we want to see it bounce back up above that to gain some positive momentum. And again, we'll have to draw some downtrend or some trend lines. The uptrend being here in blue, and the downtrend being here in red. We've also got another shallow downtrend in the short term. And we'll go ahead and close in another uptrend so that we can see we're close to bouncing off of this uptrend line. Hopefully we can make that happen. We'll have to cross over this downtrend line before we get to the long-term downtrend line. So we're going to need to see some strong moves from Lumen to come back out of this couple days worth of a dip. And that's it for the morning market update. If you guys want me to cover any other coins or play around with any other indicators, you can leave me a comment. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button and share it with any of your friends. And go ahead and click on that subscribe button and the little notification bell so you can be updated anytime I come back online. This has been Chris from HashRelay.net, and as always, I'll talk to y'all later.